Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Haberman, and I'm making this video to share the results of a study that I conducted in October of 2024 on the correlations between the big five aspects of personality and Holland's codes of career interest. If you received the link to this video directly from me, some point during the summer of 2024 and the fall of 2024, I reached out to you about participating in this study and or distributing the questionnaire to friends, family members, and or colleagues. So I'm just following up with this video for the contributors to the study as my way of saying thank you. My dissertation is pretty lengthy, and the defense was scheduled for about 45 minutes. I understand that it is hard to come up with 45 minutes of uninterrupted time, so I broke each section of my research into 5 separate videos. And this video is the second in a series of 5. So if you first missed the first video, feel free to go back and watch that first as it explains the background a little bit more. Normally, the lit review of a research project is one of the longest sections in a project. It goes over all the material that the researcher goes through to find their conclusions. And for this lecture series, I am going to keep my lit review pretty short, just because for the most part, I am presenting this information to people that don't necessarily go into academia. And so I want to keep it shorter than usual. And also, I just want to highlight the important things that I found that really impacted the direction that my research went. As far as methods of searching, so researchers, when they begin their review of literature, they keep track of how they started. So an example that I can give you is, say I'm sitting on my couch and I'm watching The Hobbit, and I make the observation that I really like the actor who plays Gandalf. I might start my search by looking up his name. And that's my method of searching, is that I I want to look up that particular actor. He's interesting to me, so I want to start by figuring out who he is. And so in science, we keep track of that information. So I started my research looking through the lens of needs, so using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I was looking at the relationships between needs and my main topics, which are personality, career interest, and job satisfaction. And then I compared them against the 6 needs that Maslow identified in his original 1943 paper, which are freedom, physiological safety, love, esteem, and self-actualization. So I did find that freedom, safety, and self-actualization needs were the most relevant to this study. They all had relationships between career and or personality that really, or that relationship of career and personality and job satisfaction that would be interesting to this study. Particularly a group of Canadian scientists found that autonomy, which is kind of similar to freedom, is incredibly important during the career decision-making process. Also, Maslow identified safety as different at different ages. So, for example, children have different safety needs than adults do. And so, for adults, our primary safety need is something called financial security, which definitely impacts how we're going to choose our careers, because money is a big important, choosing a career that pays minimum wage versus something that pays 6 figures, making that decision would affect our financial security and whether or not we need 6 figures versus minimum wage. As far as self-actualization, the definition of self-actualization that Maslow presents is very similar to the definition of kind of the vocation or calling in life. And so that is kind of how that relates to vocational studies. Related to job satisfaction, for the most part, you're going to understand job satisfaction. Either you like or you don't like your job, or somewhere in between. a lot of research has been done on job satisfaction, so I didn't really want to focus too much on that, which is why I only asked a single question. On the other hand, career fit, there were so many mixed results. There were some people that found relationships, some that didn't find relationships, some that found opposite or unpredicted relationships. And so that's where I decided to add career fit into my study because it was just so there was just so many differing results in the literature. With respect to career interest, did you know that career interest is developed at birth and is influenced by your life experiences? I honestly had no idea that that was a thing when I started this, and I just think that's very cool information. I totally thought that career interest was just through life experience, so that was very cool. Uh, as far as research, when we are looking at research, we look at both historical research and modern research. And so historically, vocational studies, I've already mentioned in my first video that um, the kind of fascination with the jobs that we do has been around since biblical times, but Frank Parsons is kind of considered the modern father of vocational research. And his book was published in 1909, a few years after he passed away. And the reason I am using Holland's theory of vocational choice, which was born of Frank Parsons' work, is that Holland's theory is used in schools today. It's used in state employment agencies, state and local employment agencies. It's used in the U.S. Department of Labor. It is a very, very common tool. Some other names that you might hear it called is Holland's Codes, Holland's the Ryesack test or Ryecheck test. All of those are kind of in that Holland's theory. As far as modern vocational research, I did find that age, employment status, and income, type and level of education, career fit, all of those have to do with career interests. They all have some relationship. So I added questions about that in my research. As far as career fit, it is how well matched a person's interests are to their job. And so if somebody's interested in working in science and their job is scientific, then in theory, that's a well-matched career. As far as career interest, what are these career interests that I keep talking about? So a realistic career is kind of our hands-on work. An example of a job that I've had that's realistic is I used to be a forklift driver. Investigative careers are scientific, and obviously I am a scientist by training. And artistic careers would be those creative types of careers. And while I was in high school, I was a cake decorator. So that's an example of an artistic career. Social careers are kind of our helpers, our society helpers. And so teaching, obviously, I was a teacher. Another example of society's helpers would be nurses and social workers and those types of careers. Enterprising careers are more the leaders and the managers. And so one career that I have, or one part of my job as a teacher was raising money. And so fundraising is an example of a enterprising career. And then as far as conventional careers, I like to think of them as our organizers in society. And so one of my jobs, I am a bookkeeper for the business that I own. And so that's an example of a conventional type of career. And so these types of careers, they do kind of mix and match. So there are types of jobs that contain multiple, but these are the basic 6 career interests that my study looked at. Personality, pretty self-explanatory. It's what makes you you. This is like career interest. It's a combination of genetics and environment, and that's no surprise. Also did some historic personality research and then modern personality research. Personality, Galen was a physician in ancient Greece about 2,000 years ago who came up with the idea of naming different personalities. And so those have kind of evolved over the the past couple thousand years. And in 1936, Allport and Odbert, they came up with a way of measuring personality using human language. And so that's been a really popular way to have people identify who they are based on the words that we use. That led to the big five traits. So Goldberg in 1981, he kind of figured out what those five traits were, and then Costa and McRae are the ones who individually define them. Then in 2007, DeYoung, Quilty, and Peterson all came up with the big five aspects. And I know I just gave you a history lesson on personality. You can tell that I am really passionate about personality. As far as modern research goes, because childhood environment is so important on personality, I did ask some questions about childhood home, and also education and job have a relationship with personality. The big thing that I found was that there were no comprehensive studies that studied Big Five personality aspects and Holland's Codes of Career Test. So that makes this study very, very important because nobody has done that before. So what are these aspects of personality that I keep talking about? Extroversion is pretty common. I feel like most people have at least heard the term extroverted. It's composed of two aspects. So assertiveness, which is kind of that drive that people have, and enthusiasm, which I like to think of as bubbliness. So we all have all five of these traits, and that unites us as humans. All of us have five personality traits, but we have differing amounts of each of these traits. So we have differing amounts of assertiveness, and we have differing amounts of enthusiasm, which is really cool when you think about it, because a single personality trait has the ability to unite us or divide us. And that is super cool. Getting back to the personality traits, openness to experience is like intellect is kind of how much we think about abstract ideas or concrete ideas. And then openness is kind of how imaginative or creative that we are. Conscientiousness is composed of industriousness, which I like to think of as discipline, like self-discipline, and then orderliness. Obviously, orderly, it sounds organized, but I kind of think of that checklist mentality that some people have. Agreeableness, again, self-explanatory. It's kind of how much you go along and get along, whereas compassion is more how much you care for other people. The opposite side of compassion would be more how much you care about yourself versus other people. So like a compassionate person would be a little bit more others first mentality, and a low compassion would be themselves first mentality. Politeness is kind of how much we follow social norms. So, a classic example would be, people who tend to swear have a little bit more lower politeness, whereas people that don't swear as much are a little bit more polite. And then finally, neuroticism is a measure of how much we feel negative emotions. So volatility is kind of that fight or flight response. And so if you think about people that really are jumpy, or you almost have to walk on eggshells around them, that's higher in volatility. Whereas even-tempered is the opposite, and even-tempered is, again, pretty self-explanatory. Withdrawal is how much we feel sadness or fear. And so if you think about somebody who's high in withdrawal, on the very worst day, they are feeling absolutely miserable. Whereas somebody who's lower in withdrawal or more self-assured, they might feel a little blue on their worst day. And that is it for this video. So if you have any questions or comments about the research so far, you can either reply to the email that I sent, or you can comment below. It is the end of May, so I'll keep an eye out for any comments until about the end of June. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.